Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the EDGE webinar. My name is Lindsay Brinker. I'm the marketing supervisor here at Nex-Tech, and I get the privilege of working with the team to oversee our marketing efforts for Nex-Tech, mainly residential marketing, but also focusing on our business and creative services as well. I'm from a small town in Kansas, and so getting to work with Nex-Tech to deploy fiber to other small towns in Kansas has been really rewarding. I've got 3 kids and a husband. I live in North Central Kansas, and we're Chiefs fans. I was going to tell you one other exciting thing. Oh, I'm getting fiber installed on Friday this week. I just got a call from our local provider. We don't have Nex-Tech in our area, but our local internet provider is installing fiber to my house on Friday, and I'm very excited about it. So I'm going to share some ways with you today to differentiate yourself against the competition in your markets. And I'm going to start today's presentation with a quote. And this is from Coach Lou Holtz. So many times people are afraid of competition when it should bring out the best in us. We all have talents and abilities, so why be intimidated by other people's skills? And that's really, as I go through the presentation today, I'm going to talk about ways to enhance things that you are already doing. I'm not going to introduce a lot of new things that you need to start adding, but we're going to focus more on recognizing what makes you special, what talents and abilities do you have, and how can you use those and highlight those to your advantage in a competitive landscape. We'll go over some practical techniques that you guys can start using. I prefer presentations and webinars that I can walk away with some tangible things that I can start doing and, some notes that I can start implementing right away for myself. So I really kept that in mind when putting this together. We're going to start by identifying and evaluating the competition that we're up against. We first need to understand who we're going up against in order to know what we need to do to stand out from them. Some different ways to evaluate yourself as a company. Also, we're going to talk about finding unicorns. This is a little surprise for later on. I'll get into that a little bit further. And then I'll end with some real world examples of marketing that I have seen recently that I feel like does a great job. All right, so we're going to start by identifying the competition. Who are we up against? We all know that the competition in the broadband industry is as stiff as it ever has been, and it's only going to increase as more funding becomes available and more people begin providing better service. So of course, we're up against national providers like Spectrum, AT&T, Cox Communications, and then we're also up against other broadband providers that might be more of our same size. They might also be community member partners. They might, be very similar to us. And so sometimes I feel like it's hardest to go up against those providers. And then, of course, you have satellite providers like Starlink, and then cell providers as well, now offering 5G, internet to the home and starting to target that same market. In addition to who are we up against, I want you to think about what are you up against when we look at these different options that are out there for our customers today. Those national providers might have huge ad spend budgets that you're up against. They might have celebrities endorsing their product, or they might be partnering with Disney Plus and Netflix to make a really attractive offer for new customers that sign up. Those area broadband companies can create some brand confusion for Nex-Tech ourselves, and I'll give a lot of examples about Nex-Tech throughout this presentation. In a recent area that we went into in a competitive market, we were up against a company called Next-Link. We were also up against a company called Tech. So think about Nex-Tech, Tech, and Next-Link, how that can be really confusing for the consumer to know who they're hearing from. Satellite providers offer, some different availability to clients, as well as those cell carriers that can offer a convenience that sometimes we can't or don't offer. And then I included yourself as the last bullet point on this list. What aspects of your current business or your current reputation, that public perception, might you actually be up against when you're trying to set yourself apart from the competition. Nex-Tech started as a cooperative under the name Rural Telephone. So sometimes there's even brand confusion there between Rural Telephone and Nex-Tech. And I know a lot of our clients are in that same boat too, where you might be doing business for your ILEC customers under one name and in a competitive market as something else, and that can cause confusion. So I wanted to include that to think about. Going one step further, thinking about the competition, these are some ways that you can find out or do a little bit more research or investigation into what your competitors are offering. So I use AI almost every single day in what I do, ChatGPT and tools like Microsoft Copilot. One of the things you could do is ask one of those AI tools to help you write a SWOT analysis for your competition. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you might, make a quick prompt in there and tell them who your competition is and have them identify and analyze what they're offering to their customers. And it'll look for things like their Google reviews and their ads that are currently out there, their website. Mystery shop is one that I included in here. This is something that we do for ourselves, and Nex-Tech actually pays a third-party company to mystery shop our customer sales team on a quarterly basis, but it definitely does not have to be anything that intense. Go to your competitor's website, put in an address, sign up for service, see what that process looks like. And I encourage you to do that on mobile, on a desktop, on the phone, and in person if you can. And then some other digital tools on here like reading Google reviews, see what their customers think of their service now. Broadband labels, whether we all love them or hate them, they are a tool that we can use to find out what our competitors are offering in terms of speed and price and maybe even hidden fees and data caps, things like that. I included this watch help wanted ads and permit and locate requests. I think these are some tools that we don't often think about in marketing, but can be really helpful when trying to determine where a competitor might be building. I know that we've used these to our advantage a few times in some really competitive markets. If we're looking to expand to a new zone or area of town, we can kind of get a feel for who else might also be in the area at the same time. And then Facebook ads library is actually, if you just go out to Google and type in Facebook ads library, it's a tool where you can enter the company and a date range, and it will show you all of the ads, paid Facebook ads that are currently running for that company. So it's a neat little tool to use to your advantage just to see what what their marketing message might look like right now. And then as you're doing that research, what things are important to look for? Speed and price, of course, see how you stack up against that. Customer satisfaction, what do their current customers think of them? What is their service area? What other areas might you overlap? And then, of course, what marketing are they currently doing? And how big are they? How does that compare to you? Now I'm going to get kind of into the practical techniques for setting yourself apart. I like little reminders, little triggers to remember things going forward. So in thinking about if you're going to write a paragraph of text and you really want one word or one phrase to stick out and stand apart from the rest of it, what are some things that you can do? Well, you can underline it, you can italicize it, and you can bold it. And those kind of the framework that I'm going to use to walk through this presentation just to help us remember these tips and techniques. The first thing we're going to talk about is establishing a baseline. What is the baseline, just brand awareness message that you want your current customers and potential customers to know about you as a company? And then we'll talk about ways to add emphasis to certain things that are important and use the things that are different about you to your advantage. And then at the very end, I have some examples of some bold marketing strategies and more of that campaign messaging that I've seen that I really appreciate and wanted to share with you guys. So the first thing I'll talk about is establishing that baseline. And this is really kind of twofold. It's first doing a self-assessment and knowing how your customers view you as a company, and then figuring out in what ways you can make that better. What ways can you make sure that the message that you want to get out there is out there? So there's a lot of tools available like Net Promoter Score, customer surveys, customer satisfaction surveys, and mystery shopping that can provide you this data in a more tangible form. I included 2 screenshots on this slide of actual NPS scores for Nex-Tech over the last year. And keep in mind, the top left, the 79 score, is for a new area that we're moving into. These customers don't have access to fiber service currently. They don't have access to gig service. So the customer satisfaction in that area does look a lot different, 10 points different than if I just ran it for our entire service area. So keep in mind when you get those scores back, make sure that you dive into the data a little bit and see what is it behind those that are affecting the numbers. And the 69 doesn't scare me for the rest of our service area because we just went through a conversion from analog TV to streaming TV. And so I would expect a little bit of a dip in our NPS score with that conversion that we went through last year. And then as we move into this, it's going to be important to really stay true to yourself as a company. Who are you as a company, and what are those core values that you have that make you who you are? What is the why behind what you do? And I know a lot of us, are very active in our community, and we're going after grant funding to make sure that people that don't have service get the internet that they need. So I want you to think about what are those non-negotiables that if somebody came into your business and said, we're not going to do it this way anymore. We're going to change this about you. What things would set you off? What things would be a trigger to go, no, that's not who we are. Find the things that are true to you. So these are kind of some things that Nex-Tech is true for us. We don't charge our customers for a fiber drop. If we're putting fiber into an area, anybody in that area can get a drop, without a service commitment and at no charge. Things like our router and installation are included with our internet service. Even things like empowering our team, our customer sales team, and our help desk, the people who answer the phones and take care of our customers, are empowered to make decisions to take care of our customers without having to escalate that to, a manager or supervisor level. And then just recently, this is a new one for us, but every fiber customer is on 1 gig service. So that's kind of been a core value that we've been migrating to over the last 5 years. And we're finally there this year. What things are true for you as a company that you would say are your core values? Some additional examples could be that you maybe don't use contractors to do the in-home installation. Maybe you use contractors for construction and engineering, but you want to make sure that if somebody's going into a customer home, it's your team that's doing that. Or maybe it's that you always bury your fiber to a certain depth, and that sets you apart from your competition who maybe doesn't take that care in installing that the way that you would. So think about those things and what is true for you. This is my daughter, Ella. She just had a birthday and she's obsessed with Frozen. And she's my example here to talk about shiny toy syndrome. And for anybody that hasn't heard of shiny toy syndrome, it's that concept that no matter how many toys Ella has, no matter how much money they cost, or if her Gigi handmade them for her, on her birthday, when she gets all these new toys to unwrap, she's just inherently going to want to play with the new ones just because the fact that they're new. So think about that in terms of a new provider coming into your area or going up against competition. If you're the one moving into an area, you might have people that are willing to try you just because you're new and different. But that also goes for the reverse. If somebody's coming into your area as a competitor, they might want to try out the new provider just because they're new. So things to remember: anticipate shiny toy syndrome. Anticipate that people are just going to want to try something new because of it, and then find ways to make your service sticky enough that it's going to make it too difficult for a customer of yours to want to switch. And this could be simple things like, providing an app that they can manage their own home network. I'm literally going through this myself. My husband spent 2.5 days over Christmas break setting up all the devices in our home on the app that comes with our routers. And when I told him we're getting fiber on Friday and I wanted to switch our router, he wasn't real happy with us. We're actually not going to do the router part this week, but I'll get him there eventually. Be consistent and share your story and make sure that your current customers keep hearing from you. And going along those lines, especially if you are moving into a new area, make sure that what people see from you is consistent across the board. These are just some examples of when Nex-Tech moved into the Salina market. If we were in an event, if we had signage, if we sponsored something, all of the pieces that represented Nex-Tech were cohesive and the focus was the same. So even though we provide creative services and we provide business services, and we have for 15 years in Salina, all of the messaging at this time was focused on residential internet and making sure that people knew what we offered. And share your story. I bet if I asked everybody on this call to raise your hand, if you are an active community member and you volunteer and you sponsor things in your community, there probably wouldn't be anybody on the call that didn't raise your hand. But if I asked how many of you consistently post about it, take photos and share on your social media about it, I would wager that not quite as many hands would go up. There is something to posting about yourself. And I know for many of us, it doesn't feel humble to post this big check that we just presented to somebody. But your current customers want to know how invested you are in your current community. They want to know what you're doing. So ask for the photo op, make it a big deal, and be proud of supporting your community and share that on social media. Okay, now on to the emphasis and finding your unicorn. I don't want you to create things about yourself that aren't true to you. So think about those core values and what you already do and figure out what makes that special and what you can enhance and emphasize in order to make yourself stand apart against your competition. And this is just one quick exercise to help you figure out what that might be. So thinking through this in terms of a national provider, what's the big difference? They're big, we're small. So what does that mean to our customers? Maybe they're marketing to millions and we're marketing to thousands. Taking it one step further, if I'm going up against a company like Cox, they're focused on providing service to the people watching the Super Bowl in the Superdome. And that is what their social media campaign looked like. While our customers probably don't care. They're more worried about, can they watch the game at home on their couch uninterrupted, even when the Chiefs tight end is dating the largest pop star in the world, and there's more streaming traffic to Chiefs games than there ever has been, and they show it on Christmas Day. Our network handled it like a dream, so we wrote about it. This is a blog post that we put up to let our customers know that we're thinking about them and what's important to them and making sure that we do a good job of providing them what they need. It's just another example, thinking in terms of they're big, we're small, how does that make us different? The support that you might get if you had to hop on a chat or a phone call with one of these companies would look very different depending on size. And then once you figure out what that is that you really want to hone in on, what's that specific focus that means the most to your customers? These are just some examples. Pick one or two, don't overdo it, and then really hammer that home. So maybe, I can see in the search that this company, their customers are tired of rate increases, and we can make a message that speaks to that directly. Okay. Now, my favorite part, I'm going to share some bold marketing campaign examples of setting yourself apart from the competition. And I can't think of a phrase, bold strategy, without this quote and movie coming to mind. So if there's any dodgeball fans in the house, this might look familiar. But that's my first example that I'm going to share. This is in a campaign that H&B Communications did when they were faced with some pretty stiff competition coming into their area, and they realized that the competitor was not upfront with their pricing. They maybe, tried to lure customers in with a certain price or promo. And then there was that gotcha factor that they would then hit them with. And so they angled their whole campaign about H&B throws it to you straight. You don't have to dodge the lies and spin. You know what you're going to get from us. So that thing that made them special was that they're honest with their customers. They provide transparent pricing, and they made sure that was the focus of their campaign. Another one I saw recently was a different internet provider in Kansas, and their billboard said, sign up in 20 seconds or less. And I thought, holy cow, that's a bold statement. Is it really that easy? So I went to Zillow and found me a cute little house that was available to rent, and I grabbed the address and I put it in their website, and it was that easy. They made it very easy to walk through the process of choosing a speed, putting in some basic contact information, and then confirming that that's the service I wanted. So shout out WTC in Manhattan, Kansas. They did a great job with that. And then this one is a campaign from a Canadian internet company that focused really on the asterisk and made that the star of the campaign. So fixed and fair prices, no price hikes ever. That's it. Best internet provided by the best network. That's it. So maybe you can't commit to no price hikes ever, but what is that thing that you can do and already do that you might not feel as special, but it really is special when you compare it to the competition that you can highlight that sets you apart? And then this last example is a campaign that Nex-Tech did. A few years ago, we launched all-inclusive service, meaning that the router, the install, the maintenance, all of those things just came standard with our internet. And we made sure that the cost of that was bundled in the internet price. So our customers didn't have to think about adding on something additional. We only offer one package. So that's our bold approach. We don't make the customer choose. We felt like everybody should get the benefits of gig service if they have fiber. And so we launched one internet package across our fiber network so that everybody has that same experience. And that was our bold approach. Just a recap of the points that we touched on. First, recognizing who your competition is and what you're up against, and then establishing that baseline brand awareness, making sure that your customers know who you are. Don't be afraid to shout out what you do, emphasize what makes you you. And then when it comes to marketing and launching a campaign, don't be afraid to be bold and do something that stands out a little bit.